Hello. Tonight's story is called Sarah's Christmas, and it's by Callie Sutty, aged 12. On the cold, hard ground of the North Pole, Rudolph pranced around in the soft snow. Behind him was Santa with his gooey mince pie and milk resting in his arms. He walked up to the window that was covered in frost, and as he stood there, warm milk in hand, the window before him thawed from the warmth of his jolly soul. Or just the fact that the cabin he was staying in had installed heating. In a sunny place called South Dakota lived a little girl called Sarah Carmichael. She was the only person in South Dakota that believed in Christmas. A small pain in her heart came every Christmas as she walked across the almost empty plains, for there were no presents or toys, no decorations, and worst of all, no Santa or even a sleigh. For Santa to visit a house, it must be filled with lots of cheer, or he won't come, because he can't see the house on his map. This happened every single year to Sarah, for South Dakota did not care for Christmas at all. When Sarah felt this way, she would walk to where the friendly elks live. The elks were the only creatures in South Dakota that reminded her of the sacred holiday. On this particular day, something strange happened. Suddenly, from among the great elks, stood a smaller, leaner elk. But something was different. Something was glowing on this elk. Sarah looked closer and realised this was no elk. This was Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer. She edged toward the glowing creature and softly petted its brown fur. "Hello, your nose is neat," Sarah said softly. But when she looked toward him, he was crying. "You all right?" "What's wrong?" Sarah asked. "The other reindeer laughed at my nose, so I ran away to sulk in Santa's sleigh. But when I was in the sleigh, my hoof accidentally pressed a big red button." Rudolph paused. "Or maybe I pressed it on purpose." Well, it was a huge red button. It created a huge bright light beam, and of course, I had to go stand under it, which took me here to you. "Now, I want to go home," Rudolph said, looking sad. "That sounds terrible. How can I help you get home?" Sarah asked. "Well, I somehow managed to transport a small sleigh with me too. It's round the back. I'll show you," Rudolph exclaimed. They walked around the back of the store, and Sarah took a quick look at the sleigh. "What were you talking about? This sleigh is huge," Sarah screamed. "It's cool though, right?" said Rudolph. "No, it's not cool, dude. You crashed a grocery store," yelled Sarah. "Those canned peaches were always out of date though. I mean, I swear I had heard like 10 stories about people getting sick from their peaches," answered Rudolph. "Oh, never mind. So how do you steer this thing?" asked Sarah. All of a sudden, Rudolph pressed the big red button and a beam of red light came again. Soon enough, the silly reindeer charged toward the light. "Wait! We have no idea where it would take us." "Should we take the risk?" said Sarah, pulling on his leg. "Definitely," screamed Rudolph, putting the girl on his back as they charged toward the light. Sarah closed her eyes as tight as she could, and when she opened them, she saw sand, lots of sand, and the blazing sun shined above them. As she looked around, she noticed the grand pyramids surrounding them. "Wait, are we in Egypt?" screamed Sarah. "I think so," said Rudolph. "Rudolph!" screamed Sarah. "What?" said Rudolph. "You crushed the great Sphinx with the sleigh," yelled Sarah. "Well, I mean, his nose job was terrible anyway, so," answered Rudolph. "Come on, let's keep trying. Press the button again," said Sarah. "Okay," answered Rudolph. Once again, the friendly reindeer pressed the big red button, and they both charged towards the light. This time, they landed in Japan, and the sleigh managed to crush a sushi restaurant. Then on their third try, they landed in Edinburgh, crashing into Edinburgh Castle with the enormous sleigh. By now it was early morning in Edinburgh, 1 in the morning to be exact, and the two had finally lost hope. They bought some iron brew with Sarah's pocket money and sat down in Princes Street Gardens to rest and think. They looked up into the sky, longingly hoping for some kind of miracle. Then it happened. Santa flew across the sky in his backup sleigh, chucking presents at the houses below. Sarah and Rudolph started screaming at the top of their lungs to get his attention. Sure enough, Santa heard their cries and swooped down to where they were standing. "Hop in," Santa yelled happily, and they did just that. That night, after Santa had finished delivering his presents around the globe, he dropped Sarah back at her home in South Dakota, and they said their goodbyes. Sarah watched as the sleigh flew off into the distance. She ran to the town centre and threw the biggest Christmas party ever that the whole town attended, bringing Christmas to South Dakota after all. This truly was the best Christmas ever. That night, as she placed her head on her pillow and her eyes began to shut, Sarah saw Santa fly by with Rudolph at his side in the sleigh. Thank you, Callie. What a lovely story.